All right. Welcome, everybody, to Moneyline MMA edition for UFC 311, the first pay per view of 2025. And UFC is coming hot with this first pay per view. We're going to be seeing two championship level bouts, both of them on the men's event side of things. Usually, if you get two belts, it's a women's and a men's. In this case, we're seeing the bantamweight and the lightweight belts put on the line as Merab will defend his belt that he took from Sean O'Malley against Umar Nurmagomedov, and Islam Makhachev, the reigning, defending, pound for pound UFC number one, arguably the best fighter in the world of any weight class, of course, other than John Jones. Islam Makhachev will be defending his belt against Arman Tsarukyan. These are some crazy fights, crazy talent. They could have easily put either of these bouts as a main event on its own pay-per-view. The fact that we're getting both of them in one is huge. I'm extremely excited. Even some of the other fights we're going to be discussing tonight. Man, this is how you get the UFC fans back in action for a new year in 2025. But of course, this isn't the first card that we've gotten for 2025. So before we get into our picks for UFC 311, let's get a quick recap on what we had last weekend. Last weekend, of course, being Vegas 101, the first card in general of 2025. It was headlined by Mackenzie Dern and Amanda Ribas, in which Jose and I did have a disagreement. And in this case, Jose wins the disagreement. Mackenzie Dern, as Jose's 2-weight, gets the job done. I had a Ribas as my 4-weight, and Mackenzie Dern just went in there, and pretty much if you go and replay last week's video from Jose's side of the handicap, it's pretty much exactly what happened. Mackenzie Dern gets the submission and gets to move on against Ribas. That's a huge win. So who knows what's next for Mackenzie Dern? Could be a title shot, could be a challenger shot, but it's coming up soon for Mackenzie Dern. We had 3 actual total disagreements from last week's card. Jose got the best of the main event, but I got C-Rod correct in the prediction. We both had our 1-weight in that fight between Bashi and C-Rod. C-Rod gets the job done as a pretty sizable underdog, too. If anyone was riding with me on some singles under C-Rod, we came under with some great profit there. C-Rod definitely won round 1, and it was a close round 2. I think I could give it to Bashi round 2 for sure. Bashi was a really good wrestler. I got to give him credit. If it wasn't for Christian Rodriguez's ability to kind of stay on the feet and get back up, he would have lost this fight. Bashi is by no means a bad fighter. He's going to be coming back getting some more wins in the UFC. I fully have confidence in that. It's just one of those spots against the prospect slayer, they call him, C-Rod. Other than that, my 5-weight, Carlston Harris, boy, that was a disappointing end. That was Jose's 3-weight as well. That was the lock of the week. And Carlston Harris just could not get the job done. So that unfortunately starts my 2025 with a 5-weight loss. But you can rest assured that we're getting that loss out of the way early because it's going to come in hot from here on out. I'm going to say at least 8 5-weight wins in a row are coming up for me starting tonight. Anyone who is new here will not know that we do our picks here in a 5-weight system. We pick 5 of the currently scheduled 14 fights for UFC 311, and we weigh them in order of confidence. We make these picks and orderings separately, and then right before the show, right before I hit live, we confer on our weights just so we know what order to go in, because we always start with the 5-weight, aka the lock of the week, individually, and then we have a combined show lock of the week, which is of course the fight with the most combined weight between it. That being said, I'll start with my 5-weight Saturday afternoon, and that's going to take us not even inside the main event. This is going to stay on the prelims. This is a heavyweight bout between Jailton Almeida and Sergey Spivak. And I just want to preface with saying that I think one of the more obvious 5-weights could be Peyton Talbot here. He's also fighting right after this heavyweight bout. Peyton Talbot is a great fight to bet on, but he's like minus 1,400. It's a bit ridiculous. It's a bit of the more guaranteed scenarios the UFC's ever seen. So I wanted to kind of mix it up here and not make it quote unquote easy. Jailton Almeida is definitely a favorite here. So by no means am I picking an underdog or anything crazy like that. But he is fighting Sergey Spivak. I expect him to have a speed advantage. I expect him to be able to wrestle. I expect him to be able to do everything he needs to do to get the win. Jose, do you have any thoughts on that one?
I think so this one I definitely do not have a pick on it. The reason is just there's just so many big too many big fights. But that being said, I like your pick with Spivak. I mean Almeida, I
Almeida,
should
yeah,
say,
yep.
and he's just looked nothing but phenomenal. Besides that, like you mentioned, like that Curtis Blades fight, he just did not play it smart. But other than that, he showed nothing but true dominance. Every time he stepped in the cage, while Spivak, he on the other hand, he himself, he's looked dominant at times, but just as much as Jalen Almeida. And the one thing I do think Spivak has over Almeida is just the level of competition, like seeing Marcin Tybura, Cyril Gahn, Derek Lewis. You know, he's been in there with Tom Aspinall as well. So he's definitely seen a better level of competition, and he's extremely young as well. He's 29. He's Almeida is the older one in this matchup, and Spivak is still an athletic beast, and he himself, I think his wrestling will be able to be pair up with Almeida's. So on the feet, I'm actually pretty interested to see how that's gonna go. Who's gonna be the better grappler, to be honest. I like Almeida as a favorite just because he's just been looking extremely dominant, but I just could not make a pick because I just really want to keep seeing Almeida with higher level competition. I think Spivak would be a good test for him. So I'm sure I'll make more picks on him moving forward. Last time I think I did, I've always picked Almeida. Though historically, like I had him against Romanov last time, and even against Blades, and that's why I was so upset when Blades finished them. But that being said, yeah, this one I have no pick, but I do like Almeida.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, man. I just don't think this is a good enough match. Stylistically, this isn't going to work for Spivak, in my opinion. Almeida by far has the speed advantage. Yeah, okay, the polar bear is going to have some strength there. If you look at the striking power, excuse me. But in the end, really, I mean, these guys both have 7 professional knockouts, and I get what you're saying. You know, Spivak has seen some top end competition. So is Almeida. They both fought Derek Lewis, Curtis Blaze, Alexander Romanov is another name in there. Jailton Almeida, to me, is not only going to be faster, but he is going to be way superior in the grappling game. That's just up to me. I mean, Sergey Spivak does have 8 submission wins under his belt. So if you look purely at that and you're like, oh, well, look, he's got 8 submissions under his belt. Okay, he submitted Marcin Tybura. That's probably the best wrestler he's submitted. But Marcin is a wrestler, he has nothing to do with grappling. He submitted Derek Lewis, Augusto Sakai, I mean, come on. Those are guys that are bottom of the barrel people to submit. Tai Tuivasa. Like these are guys who stand up and strike with you. My point is that he has zero chance in submitting Almeida, if you ask me. Zero. Almeida's gonna come in there, and even if Almeida's on his back, he will not care. He'll throw up an armbar, he'll throw something up from his back. I have full confidence in Almeida. I would say submission or points all day long. And to me, it's obviously my 5 weight, so I've got confidence, but it's really that simple. I think the speed difference is going to be ridiculous. And I think, yeah, Almeida did make a mistake against Curtis Blades. He got caught in an awkward position, and it was like his brain turned off. I find that personally to be a one-off scenario that doesn't happen again. And with that said, if he doesn't lose that fight against Curtis Blades, he's going to be like minus 600 against Sergey Spivak here. So to me, it's nothing but a great pick. He is minus 440, so there is still a pretty steep price to pay on Jailton Almeida here. But as far as my pick goes, I'm extremely confident.
Okay, dude, I will make. I like your points, and I will make a one more final thought on that too for Almeida. I think if he wins, though, it may be more likely knockout, because he does have power behind his hands, and that's really pretty much the only way Spivak has lost besides that one decision. But he gets finished, and he gets finished pretty early, like in the first or second rounds. So, like even Walt Harris finished them back in the day. So I think Joel Almeida, like, he's got some first rounds up there too. So mostly submissions I'm seeing in the first round, but yeah, like he does have a couple TKOs in the first round as well. So I do like the idea because like just because Spivak's never been submitted before, so I do like the idea of Almeida actually. If he's going to win, it's going to be more likely by a KO/TKO. But that's just me personally how I think he may win it.
Hey man, I appreciate the extra note. Because to be honest, it is true. Maybe instead of doing submission or points, maybe just bet inside the distance and do KO or points. Because I'm with you. I think Almeida does have some striking acumen, and he could really complement it with the risk of being on the ground and getting submitted. That Sergey Spivak has to recognize if he thinks he's going to win this fight. And yeah, from there, the only thing I gotta say is that Personally, I couldn't care less if he's never been submitted. I think Sergey Spivak still has a high percent chance of getting submitted here because my point is that I don't think he's fought anyone with Almeida's ground ability at all. Period. And I don't think no one has tested him even close to that level in a UFC fight specifically, at least. But that being said, that'll be my 5-weight. Jose does not have an official pick on Jailton Almeida, and we shall move on to Jose's 5-weight.
So for my 5-weight, this is actually going to be on the main card. It's going to be the light heavyweight bout, I should say, between Yuri Prochazka and Jamal Hill. Right now, Yuri is the betting underdog at -108, while Jamal Hill is the betting favorite at -118. This one, I am going with the slight underdog in Yuri Prochazka, and the reason is he's pretty much looked good against everyone besides Alex Pereira, but he has been battle tested. Like against Alexander Rakic, he did clip him up a lot in that fight, and then against Glover Teixeira as well. That was an all-out war. And that being said, I do think Yuri, he's just extremely creative. That he will get the job done against Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill, he has a lot of power, but the dudes that he's beaten, I think as of lately, just their values kind of. I don't want to say take anything away from him because at the time these guys were good, but like Glover Teixeira was already on his way out the door. Thiago Santos, he's already gone. Johnny Walker might as well be gone. And then Jimmy Crute too. He's been on a 4-fight losing streak pretty much. Well, 3 losses including 1 draw in there. So I just feel like the wins that Jamal has kind of had have not aged very well. Like I think even Thiago Santos lost to an extremely old Yoel Romero and then came back to lose again after that. So I just think his wins did not age well versus Yuri's wins, where his wins Dominic Reyes coming back, Volkan Ozdemir as well. He just did lose to Carlos Goldberg, but he's kind of had his up and downs as well. And I just think that he's still in the UFC. But that being said, I just think that Yuri's had better fights of age, and I guess it's a thing of the past and it means nothing, but he is just extremely unorthodox and different and creative that I truly think he can knock out or TKO Jamal Hill. And Jamal Hill, and it's just the level of experience too. At 32 years old, he's 1 year younger than Jamal Hill, and just the amount of fights he has compared to Jamal Hill, he's 30-5. Jamal Hill's only 12-2, and Jamal Hill, of course, he's gone against a lot of fighters that have like a lot of experience as well. But in this one, I just stylistically like Yuri just because how unorthodox he is. I think it's going to be problematic for Jamal Hill. He doesn't really have a size advantage whatsoever, just a 1-inch reach advantage, and Jamal Hill's actually taller than him. And Jamal Hill also throws a high volume of strikes to both guys. It's gonna get wild. I think it's gonna start off a little slow, but it's gonna pick up in pace. And just they're gonna start going off. Is pretty much the way I see it. And like all their fights I have. But Yuri, the one thing is, if Yuri loses, though, too, I do not see him losing by points from Jamal Hill. It's going to be, again, Jamal Hill's got power, and Yuri does get clipped a lot, too. So so Jamal could just hit the right spot at any given moment and knock Yuri on. I truly think that's just the only way Jamal Hill's pretty much going to win this. But Yuri, I could see Yuri finishing Jamal Hill by KO, submitting them even, or just winning all out unanimously. So that being said, yeah, I got Yuri as my 5. I think he's going to dominate, but if he gets finished, I think it's going to be Jamal Hill just clipping him and just putting lights out. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
Whew, what a great fight this is, man. I'm really excited. This is the feature fight of a pay-per-view, man. And we're seeing guys that have been, Jamal Hill, part of one of the biggest main events to ever exist in the UFC. Yuri Prochazka. Both of these guys connected to Alex Pereira, one of the biggest names in UFC right now. Super excited about the implications for this fight. And honestly, like Jamal Hill, man, what a cringe kind of fighter he's turned into. Like he has like America behind him, it feels like, and then all of a sudden he loses to Alex Pereira, and he could take the loss on his respectively, right, and just be like, you know what? He got me. I'm gonna turn around and be better. But he just goes on this whole circus act of I didn't lose, I'm better, I'm gonna win, blah blah blah, and then this whole weird thing about seeing him in the UFC PI, and Alex Pereira's like, dude, you're still unconscious, and he's like offended, like, oh, let's put the gloves on, and it's like, okay, so Pereira gives him gloves and he doesn't do anything, Eh, just weird acts, man. And I try not to let that stuff impact, my handicaps or what I think is going to happen. Because in the end, though, it does it. The real question is, does it affect their performance? In this case, no. I don't think it really matters at all. It's just a perception thing. So that isn't at all one of the reasons I'm against Jamal Hill, because I have a 4 weight. I agree with you on Jiri Prochazka. One of the things I really like about Prochazka is just that he's like relentless, man. He never stops, and he got rocked pretty well by Rakic. Turns around and finishes the fight. Like, all I need to say is the only person in the UFC that's finished him is Alex Pereira, and he's only been finished a couple of times before the UFC as a prospect. And one of the guys that finished him as a young prospect, he ended up going back around and beating later on by a KO. So Jiri is not somebody who you can just put out. Like, it's crazy. It's almost crazy to me, the odds, right? If you look, Jamal Hill's technically the favorite. So we're technically, I mean, minus 108 to minus 118, so it's extremely close. Jiri's technically the dog here, and I'm not with that at all. I've seen too much from Jiri. I feel like he is a true warrior. He's like got that samurai mentality that he doesn't care, man. If he's bleeding or if he has pain, it just does not matter. And if I'm gonna be honest, man, I just don't. I don't see the same dog in Jamal Hill. I'm trying not to disrespect him in any way, but if it comes down to your arm being broken, I don't think Jamal Hill continues, and I do think Jiri does. And I really think I think there's just more of a grit and more of like a hunger to get the win and a hunger to be the best out of Jiri. And it's really that's what to me matters here. I think Jamal Hill, he could destroy me in one punch if I was to fight him, right? And that's that, right? But that's not what we're talking about. Can he beat Jiri Prochazka? And to me, I just don't think he can. I think it's going to be one of those situations where Jiri's going to almost give the UFC no choice, but to get another shot against Alex Pereira, especially as Alex continues to beat everybody else with ease. So I'll quit rambling. That's my pick. 4-weight on Jiri.
Yeah, those are excellent points you made, and yeah, I mean, if he beats Jamal Hill and miraculously, like, yeah, he has no choice but to go against Pereira again. The thing is like, I hope the UFC makes it. I just feel like Dana White would be like, because like just both times Yuri stepped in with Pereira just kind of finishes them, and we really haven't seen Yuri do much to give us hope and like side with him when he's fought Pereira, where it's like it's almost looked like, yeah, like I think Alex is gonna just like at any point put him out now. Like he's starting to clip him up, and Alex is just a lot better, I think, technically than Yuri. But then Yuri's so unorthodox and untechnical that it just causes problems for other fighters, but not such high level fighters like Alex Pereira. I feel like, and I think Jamal Hill, as you mentioned, yeah, I think Jamal Hill is disciplined to some aspect, but his level of fighting IQ is just nowhere near as like I think Alex Pereira's, and he's got he's got some dog in him, but I just think that Yuri will definitely put him to sleep. So on this one, I don't want to beat a dead horse too much. So that being said, like yeah, I 100% agree with you. Yuri, he's my 5-weight. I think he has the ability to finish Jamal. And just a side note to you, that guy that Yuri went against, that he came back later on and defeated, was King Mo. So that's like a pretty impressive win to like come back in later on your career and regain and get back that
True.
loss. So
Yeah,
so
that's true.
that being in Yuri, he's fought a lot of dudes too, like Alex, even Glover Teixeira. I think at some point it looked like Yuri was gonna go out from like a submission from Glover Teixeira. So yeah, I would not doubt Yuri's been put out to sleep and just woken up and won fights in the past. So this one 100% agree with you. Yuri, my 5-weight, and he's your 4-weight.
Yeah, that'll be it, man. That sounds like the what's likely going to be the money line lock of the week there. And what a line to get the lock of the week at minus 108. You know, Jamal Hill just seems to me to have one path to victory, and it's going to have to be that KO. I just don't think that's going to be a possibility here. I think Jiri may get rocked once or twice, but a KO, man, that's no, I don't know. Only been able to see Pereira do that. Last note I want to say is regarding that rematch. I get what you're saying, right? It kind of wasn't like what Holloway and Volkanovski, where it kind of felt like even though Volkanovski kept beating Holloway, it wasn't like a blow away, like easy win by any means. So they kept giving him rematches where Alex has now knocked out Jiri twice. It's not like it hasn't been like a close like 49-48 judges decision. You know what I'm saying? So that does make it a little harder to push for. But I'll say this, man. Alex Pereira is 37 years old. I don't mean to be a party pooper or anything like that. Alex Pereira is a human being. He will not be a champion at this level for that much longer. I mean, maybe give him to next year. I mean, I don't know. It depends. Everybody's different. Maybe he's like Glover and he could do it into his 40s. Maybe, but he's been fighting his whole life. Alex Pereira doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to be able to do that into his 40s with the style that he has. So, like I said, I don't mean to be a party pooper. I'm a huge fan of Alex Pereira, but there will be a day when Jiri is the better fighter, and it will simply be by age.
Well, I 100% agree with you on that. Yeah, just until he's the next best guy in that weight class. He's like DC to John Jones, Robert
Right?
Whitaker to
Honestly,
Izzy.
honestly.
So 100%.
But either way, that concludes our pick. I think we both are big fans of Jiri here. Of course, ends up being 9 total confidence points. And with that, I'm going to bring us to the co-main event of Saturday afternoon for my 3-weight. We've already covered my 5 and 4 weights, but my 3-weight for Saturday afternoon lands me in the co-main event, like I said. And I'm going to be taking the favorite here. As much as I like Merab Dvalishvili, I love his little videos and antics online. This is really just a pick in which I want to win. I'm not trying to pick the loser. I want to pick the winner. And really, man, Umar is just one of those guys that you don't want to bet against at this time. Like, the one thing you could maybe say against Umar is his lack of, like, high level competition. Okay, fair. Umar hasn't fought like he hasn't been a champion that long. He's only 29 years old. So it's not like he's got a laundry list of high level fighters. Merab's been able to fight Sean O'Malley, Piotr Jan, Jose Aldo, Henry Cejudo alone in his last 4 fights. Those are all insanely high competition fights for him to come out as the victor of too. So don't get me wrong. That's why this is my 3-weight, because Merab alone gives me some pause, man. This guy has relentless conditioning. He will not stop. And that said, I just don't think his strong suit of using his conditioning and wrestling is the best stylistic matchup against Umar here. Umar is the kind of guy who can stand and strike with you. He is no slouch on the feet. He lands almost 4.5 strikes per minute and doesn't even absorb 2. And that includes fights against Corey Sandhagen, Raoni Barcelos, Nate Maness. Okay, like I said, some of these names aren't insane. So the stat's going to be a little inflated. But Merab kind of has a similar flow. He's landing a little over 4.3 strikes, but absorbing a little over 2 as well. With the difference in competition level. So, man, this is kind of the back and forth I was going in my head, trying to make the pick. In the end, though, this is Dagestan, Russia, man. Whether or not Umar has the names on the paper, whether or not we can look on the UFC website and see, ooh, he's fought him and him and him. Guess what? He gets to go into training with some of the best of all time. That's all. His camp is some of the best of all time. Simple as that. And to me, I mean, I've seen even like Mighty Mouse training with them and stuff. Man, it's insane. It's not just Khabib. It's not just Islam. It's like they got Mighty Mouse, and they'll randomly have other people, some of these insane fighters come out and just wrestle and roll around with them. And it's nuts. So to me, I almost scrap the entirety of the argument of who's got more in the cage experience, because Umar's grown up around the cage way more than Merab has. No offense to Merab, but Umar's like, I feel like Umar is born and then thrown into the cage. Like, you got to survive or you're just going to be fed to the wolves tomorrow. So, yeah, that being said, man, those small mentality differences, I think, end up being the difference here between 2 of the best fighters I've ever personally seen in this division. Yeah, it's insane. What do you think, Jose?
Yeah, on this one, I agree with you. I have Umar, but he is my 2-weight, and for a lot of the same reasons you said. He comes from a phenomenal camp, some of the best in the world now, and he's been surrounded by greatness like his entire life, growing up with Khabib and Islam, and just in Khabib's father, of course, and just that like uh, hard work and discipline and wrestling lifestyle has been embedded into him since like such a young age. And I think Merab is not too much far off from that as well. I just think Umar was just surrounded by more greatness. But what I think Merab has done better for himself compared to Umar was just build his resume. And as you mentioned already, like, obviously having to win over a superstar like Sean O'Malley is most recent. Then he has a win over Olympic gold medals and two division champ Henry Cejudo. Then Peter Yan, Jose Aldo, like these champs, like, he's being like the top, and he's built himself from the bottom to the top. When he entered the UFC, he lost 2 in a row, and then from there he just kind of learned to become like a decision king. Like almost all his fights in the UFC have been won via unanimous decision, but one against Marlon Morales. And Umar Nurmagomedov, he himself, like he's a finisher, and so in this one I'm interested to see how it goes, because if he cannot finish Merab and it gets dragged out to decision, I'm really interested to see who's going to impose their will the most, because I do think this is going to be the most aggression that Merab will probably have faced in his MMA career in terms of wrestling. I don't think, and even like I think even over Henry Cejudo and Peter Yan, I think that the wrestling pressure he's going to endure in this one is going to be greater than any of those fights against even those guys that have phenomenal grappling. And just seeing how Umar just unanimously went through Corey Sandhagen says a lot, like, about how he's going to deal with Merab's stand-up game. Like, Corey Sandhagen is creative and fast as they come, and he even won a fight with just pure wrestling against Rob Font. And so I think on the feet, Umar is going to be nothing but confident. And then when it comes to the wrestling, I think I just truly think he's going to completely demolish Merab in it, even though I could be wrong and Merab can put a better fight, and I think it could be a similar matchup to how it was Arman and Islam when they first fought. I can see it being very similar to that, just because how Merab, he was able to impose his will and take Henry Cejudo down and like pick him up in a spectacular fashion. So if he, like, I'm really interested to see how Merab will answer Umar. But that being said, just because Umar, the background he's given, like you mentioned, he's been not in the UFC, but he's been fighting his entire life. So I think just him matching up with Merab is just nothing, and it can be, it's the first of his chapter of his story of his long career, like how he became champion was beating a phenomenal great Merab Dvalishvili. So that being said, like, yeah, I got Umar. He's my 2-weight just because it's a really hard matchup. This is like a very hard matchup for me to really pick a winner, just because Merab's just been looking so good, and this is by far, I think, going to be Umar Nurmagomedov's biggest test as well, and it's going to be, I think, the biggest test for each other in their own careers. So that being said, Umar, but my confidence is low. He is my 2-weight.
Okay, sounds good. So, yeah, honestly, pretty similar. That's 5 combined confidence out of us. My 3-weight, your 2-weight. We both agree on Umar, but have a lot of respect for Merab, man, and that really is what drives down our confidence a little bit, I think, because it really is. It comes down to a 1-versus-1, man. An injury could happen at any time. Anything could really happen here that leads to Merab getting a win. Yeah, especially when you look at the odds, man. Umar at minus 330 against the champ, dude. How many times do you see the champ being plus 240, man? Usually, if that's happening, it's like somebody's returning from a layoff. Like John Jones is returning from a layoff, right? But even then, if I remember correctly, when he came back to fight Gane, it was like a vacated belt or whatever, because Francis left. So it wasn't even like he was fighting a guy who had defended his belt for a while, blah, blah, blah. Either way, Merab, to have the belt undisputed and to be plus 240 is wild. You don't see that very much at all, and it really goes to show the public confidence in Umar as well. It's understandable, man. We do agree in the end. But be careful with your dollars, your pennies, your dollars, your cents. Merab here at plus 240 seems to be like, I feel like Merab against anyone in the world plus 240 seems to be good value. But it's personally one I'm not touching at all, as I could see it go either way. But I do lean towards Umar, of course, and so does Jose. So that said, let's go to Jose's 4-weight.
So for my 4-weight, this is going to be the lightweight bout between Beneil Dariush and Renato Moicano. Right now, Beneil Dariush, he is the betting underdog at plus 154, while Renato Moicano is the betting favorite at minus 200. For this one, I'm just straight up going with Moicano. He's just been stopping people, stopping their hype trains, and he's got phenomenal wins, and I think this is a good matchup for him stylistically. Just the names he's being: Jai Herbert, Alexander Hernandez, Brad Riddle, Drew Dober, Jalen Turner, and then most recently Benoit Saint Denis. Like, Yeah, I think like this is a very fair matchup for him, especially because Beneil Dariush, like they're both the same age, but I just feel like um Ronaldo Moicano compared to Beneil Dariush, he's just been a lot more active. They both have similar amount of fights. Beneil having being 22 wins and 6 losses, and Moicano having 20 wins and 5 losses. But Beneil Dariush is just not. I just feel like not nearly as active as Ronaldo Moicano. Like for example, he didn't even compete at all last year, and then the year before that he fought twice. In 2022, he only fought once. And then after that, yeah, like just twice in 2021, in 2020. So he's just not, as of recently, just not been nearly as active as Moicano. Whereas Moicano fought 3 times last year. He did take 2023 off, but even then in 2022 he fought 3 times as well. So and a little more of a recency bias, but yeah, I'm going with Moicano. Just a lot more of an active fighter, and I think Moicano offers actually more of a threat overall, even on the feet. Even though out of his 20 wins, he has 2 via KO/TKO. I just think as of lately, like he's just shown it against how much better he's getting at his striking, like against Jalen Turner and Benoit Saint Denis. So I just think that momentum is going to keep going. He always has his grappling to fall back, his jiu-jitsu. Half of his wins are via submission. Where Beneil Dariush, he's been kind of looking slow. I mean, against Armin Tsarukyan, we really didn't see anything. And then even against Charles Alvarado, we didn't see much as well. But he's just looked kind of slow and definitely takes a beating. Like even against Matus Gamera, even though he won that unanimously, he just didn't seem as fast. He just seemed like the more powerful fighter, which could happen. He can come in and he doesn't have to be swinging as much, but when he does land, it could do a lot of damage to Moicano because that's certainly what it was doing to Gamera when he fought him. But that being said, Moicano is going to be the one throwing a higher volume of punches in this matchup, and on how they match up physically, they're about the same. Neither fighter has a reach advantage, and Renato is just slightly taller. But other than that, guys, both these guys are pretty like dead even in a lot of stuff. But I think the grappling, when it comes down to it, I think Moicano is actually going to be the one to be able to. Beneil Dariush has 8 submissions on his record, but I think Renato Moicano, just as of lately with his momentum, I think he finishes Beneil Dariush. I was about to say most likely by submission, but to be honest, I scratched that. I just have Moicano winning in any method, to be honest. So that being said, I have Moicano. I feel really good about him. I like the streak he's been going on as of lately. He's a lot more active. Therefore, yeah, he's my 4 weight. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
This will be a disagreement for us. I trying to double check, but I think this is our first disagreement. Yes, it is because we've agreed on the other ones, or we didn't have both have picks. So this is our first disagreement for UFC 311. I'm going to be taking Beneil Dariush as my 2 weight, so decently less confidence than your 4 weight on Renato Moicano, and that mainly is because I respect Moicano's ability to land punches to finish fights. Like you said, he's kind of been the exterminator of hype lately after beating Benoit Saint Denis, kind of beating Jalen Turner, knocking him out, starching him, and kind of stopping the hype. For lack of a better term, and yeah, like you said, Dariush didn't fight last year. As I understand it, he had an injury he was recovering from. So you could take that in either way. You could take that in the way of, well, he's hurt, so he's not going to be 100%, or you could take it in the way of, he took the time to heal, and maybe he's better off because he's not fighting injured now. Of course, considering he's my 2 weight, I'm definitely leaning on the side of he took his time off to get healthy, to get his mind right. His last 2 losses definitely weren't ideal, getting knocked out in the first round, but these are two of the top end. I mean, I don't think Moicano would stand a chance against Oliveira or Tsarukyan either. I think both of these guys are very clearly a tier below those champion level guys. So with that said, I'm making this handicap off the idea that Dariush is motivated to come back off of those losses and show that he deserves respect. He was on a tear between, what was that, 2018 and 2022. I think it was about 8 or 9 straight wins in order to get that fight against Oliveira, in which if he beat Oliveira, he was going to get a title shot. And of course, he ended up losing that fight and didn't get his title shot, fought Tsarukyan and also lost. So it was an unfortunate turn of events for him. He had to heal and get right from injury. I recognize Moicano has a finishing ability that's been strong lately, and honestly, he's a fan favorite. I like Renato Moicano a lot. He knows, he's got his podcast, he's doing all this stuff online. He kind of knows how to rile up the fan base and get a lot of people going. So I respect him for that, and I like that he provides entertainment to the MMA fan base. But in this case, I just don't think he's gonna be able to get the job done. You know, in my eyes, his main way of getting the job done will be finishing Dariush on the feet, getting a KO. I don't think he's going to land any sort of submission. I understand he's got 10 submission wins under his belt. Dariush has 8. I think both these guys are very elite grapplers, and I think they both kind of respect that and don't really go at it too much. If either one of these guys is really going for a submission hard, I think it's because they're too nervous to get up on the feet and box it out. But in all reality, man, I like Dariush on the feet. I don't think he's necessarily some sort of KO artist by any means. In fact, he does kind of have sometimes a soft chin, but so does Renato Moicano, right? We can look at his 2 most recent wins and be like, oh, look at that. He finished Jalen Turner. He finished Benoit Saint Denis. Look at how great that was. But in all reality, man, those are the only 2 KOs he's got under his entire career, right? So if you take those 2 fights away, he has 0 KO wins and 3 KO losses. So, I mean, to me, there's a little bit of a recency, like, oh my gosh, look at how good he is, just off of those last 2 fights. And kind of the exact opposite for Dariush, where it's like, oh, he lost his last 2 fights, he's awful. So for me, it's a little bit of an overreaction there. I really respect Beneil Dariush a lot. Getting a plus 154 value on him here, too. I really think he's going to come in with some motivation. I think he understands he might not be a champion at this weight class, but he wants to come back, get a couple of wins, cement his legacy before he retires. So that's why I have him as my 2-weight.
Yeah, I agree, man. And honestly, like growing with Beneil Dariush, like him being that much of an underdog, I do see a lot because as you mentioned, yeah, like he could use that time off as an advantage, and because even then, like what he fought, he took damage to be finished, but he did it. It's not like he took damage for 3 to 5 rounds. So I just feel like his recovery from those fights too would be faster than usual, as opposed to doing like an all-out war with a fighter.
Yeah.
So yeah, that being said, yeah, I see what you're saying. It can be a brand new Beneil Dariush we see and completely derail Moicano. So I do like Beneil Dariush as an underdog as well. But that being said, I'm riding with that momentum with Moicano. This is our first disagreement of the night.
Cool. Yeah, man, like I said, I love Moicano, and if Moicano gets the win, the only thing I'm sad about is that I don't get the win on the board for my 2-weight, but Moicano's an entertaining dude, and it's hard not to root for him.
100%. And that being said, I think we're safe to move on to my 3-weight.
Let's do it.
And for my 3-weight, this is actually going to be the middleweight bout between Kevin Holland and Rainier D. Ritter. Right now, Kevin Holland is the betting favorite at minus 120, while D. Ritter is the betting underdog at minus 106. This one, I'm going with the slight underdog, D. Ritter. Reason is that I've actually yet seen. I was against him his last fight. I actually was the one. I think we both picked Gerald Mearshart. And that being said, just seeing him like grueling it out all the way to the 3rd round, and then still getting a submission win at the end, it shows me like, yeah, like he was. I see why he was champ in another organization for a reason. I still don't think the level of competition is the same, but I think Kevin Holland, the way I don't think it's like necessarily he's someone that they're throwing to the wolves anymore. And that's because like when we saw him, like for example against MVP, you know, like these dudes are just kind of coming in and and I don't know, like they come in and they get matched up somewhere where we think they're going to be at, but it's not like they're being fed to the wolves right away. And that being said, like Kevin Holland, he's still up there, but he's coming off that 1st round loss. He has a 1st round win over Michael Olajaychuk. So I like Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland, if he finishes D. Ritter, it's gonna have to be, I think, really quick. But I think D. Ritter can take damage and will go would go a few rounds, you know, getting probably beaten up and bullied by Kevin Holland even. But I think D. Ritter at the end will be able to get like the victory either by split or by submission, honestly, because out of his 18 wins, he does have 12 via submission. And Kevin Holland, out of his 12 losses, he's lost via submission. So I don't think D. Ritter will knock out Kevin Holland, but I think D. Ritter would be able to either submit or win by split decision. So that being said, I do have D Ritter, but he falls in the middle for me. He is my 3-weight just because Kevin Holland, he's just unpredictable, and he can be flashy as well too. And just not, I'm not even considering like a recency bias because I just Kevin Holland is legit like at both welterweight and middleweight. But I just think the way he's been getting beaten lately, like I think D Ritter can almost capitalize off that and get a win in this one. But that being said, yeah, I'm going with D Ritter, the slight underdog, and he's my 3-weight. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
I don't have an official weight. Obviously, my last weight to be announced is one weight along with yours, and that one weight does not lie in this fight. I will say if I was to make a pick on this, I would probably disagree with you actually and go with Kevin Holland. I think Kevin Holland, the seasoned veteran, just after watching, you were right. We both picked Mearshare and got it wrong in his debut, his Rainier de Ritter's debut, that is, in the UFC. And de Ritter was able to kind of grit it out, but in all reality, I was unimpressed by his performance. Coming out of whatever division it was, 1FC or whatever, he was a champ. He's supposed to be so good, this and that. And honestly, he barely hang on to beat Gerald Mearshare. I know it goes down in the books as a submission. It's a round 3 submission, so it's really hard to say. I don't know. Rainier de Ritter just did not impress me that much. And for Kevin Holland, he is an up and down fighter. So that's the one thing that makes me not like, shoot, just put Kevin Holland straight as a weight of mine, because you can get a different Kevin Holland kind of on different nights. Sometimes you get a good, sometimes you get a bad, right? But in general, when you look at Kevin Holland in the fights in which he might have gotten out wrestled or outbeat on the ground, we're talking guys like Khamzat Chimaev, right? Guys that are pretty good wrestlers, guys that anyone's really going to struggle with. I don't really respect Rainier de Ritter's ground game that much, and honestly, I think Kevin Holland's ground game is a little bit like under talked about or under discussed or underappreciated. Not that he's going to go out there and get a bunch of submissions, but he's got 9 submission wins to 3 submission losses. So I don't know, man. I just don't think Kevin Holland is like inefficient on the ground by any means. He just chooses to stand and box because he's got kind of a bigger. That's just kind of how his frame works, and it's good for his style. So boom, bada bing. I think Kevin Holland's going to come in here and try outboxing Rainier de Ritter, and I think he will. I think he's going to be able to get up back on the feet if he does get taken down. I'm not confident enough to say that and put a weight on it, but yeah, that said, I would take Kevin Holland here.
No, I told you, yeah, Kevin Holland extremely dangerous. Like I agree. Like I think on the feet he's gonna clip up. I think D Ritter is definitely the fight's gonna end and he's definitely gonna be beaten up for sure by Kevin Holland. And Kevin Holland, he has a 3-inch reach advantage, and and again, it depends which Kevin Holland, like you mentioned, shows up that night because even if he looks slightly good, he's the type of guy, I don't know, like he's been kind of getting better at it, but he'll still kind of laugh it off and just I feel like not have that sense of urgency, like hey, you're falling behind, like maybe quit some antics or like just stay focused and really lock in and just try to finish your opponent. And so if that Kevin Holland shows up who actually tries to be a finisher, I think it can be lights out. I think he can knock out D Ritter, but I think D Ritter is going to close the distance, and I think just not let Kevin Holland breathe and take some shots while he's doing it and obviously get hurt. But at the end, I think D Ritter is going to pull out a win. So yeah, this one, even though you don't have a pick, you're going with Kevin Holland and I'm going with D Ritter. I do have a pick. He's my 3-weight. So this is like a disagreement, but you just have no weight on the fight.
Pretty much. Yep. And yeah, that'll obviously lead us down to, we do our picks in order of weight here. So, let us know down in the comments below if you prefer this to be done in fight order instead. But in this case, we got to wait all the way to the last fight here to discuss the main event. Of course, we already discussed one championship fight between Umar and Merab, but we have the main event between Islam Makhachev, however you want to say it, versus Arman Tsarukyan. A long-awaited bout. Arman had to take like a 6-month probationary, if I could talk, like sentence because he attacked a fan in his last walkout. I guess someone was talking crap and he went and swung. So, hey, don't talk crap to a fighter. I don't know what you're expecting him to just be like and then keep walking. He's in fight mode. What do you think he's going to do? Either way, Arman Tsarukyan's coming in here trying to take Islam's belt, trying to take that pound-for-pound #1 overall status. And Islam is looking to kind of stay status quo. Islam has not lost in the UFC since 2015 against a bum when he was also a bum. So, shoot, Islam is just on a tear, man. And Arman Tsarukyan can kind of say the same thing, other than the fact that he's only lost to Gamrot and Islam himself in his UFC debut. That's a whole storyline on how this is technically a rematch. But in all reality, I don't really think the first fight, like, the only thing we would really care about from what happened in that first fight in 2019 is how have things changed since, right? Has Arman or Islam really evolved in any specific way that could really determine the outcome of this current fight? And I would say definitely Arman's got better. No doubt about it. Arman was really young, and he's 20. I believe he's 28 now. He's going to be 29 this year. So he's got a lot more experience under his belt. He's been able to fight a whole kind of litany of good fighters, and only lost to that split decision, or I guess it's technically unanimous. But looking back, I feel like it should have been split with Gamrot. Either way, Arman Tsarukyan is an animal. He keeps his wrestling pace is insane. I've seen videos of him wrestling with Kamzat. I've seen videos of him just looking like a stud. Like, how does this guy get down to 155 pounds? That is crazy. He looks nuts. He looks like he's in crazy good shape. And I believe, I would have to double check the stat, but he might still be the only one to take down Islam Makhachev in the UFC. I believe that is a true statistic, that Arman is still the only person to have taken down Islam. Will he do that again? Time will tell. But if I'm Arman, I keep this feet stand on the feet. I don't know, man. I don't trust Makhachev on the ground at all. But here I am, picking Makhachev as my one weight. I mainly am looking at this like, Makhachev's been there and done that. He's fought Volkanovski multiple times. He went to hell and back with Dustin Poirier. And Dustin Poirier kind of had him in a spot that Poirier almost wanted. Like, Poirier was definitely losing the fight by rounds, but it almost seemed like Poirier was just going to land that knockout shot at some point, and he couldn't get it done. Ended up getting choked out. At the risk of not rambling on, I'm going to leave it there for you, Jose, but I'm pretty confident. It is my one weight, but Makhachev is the pound for pound number one for a reason. And I think we might see a similar scenario here with Tsarukyan and Makhachev that we also could see with Pereira and Prochaska in the light heavyweight division, in which Tsarukyan is so good, just not quite good enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on this one. Armin is extremely good, but I think Islam's just obviously better, that's why I think I'm going with him, and he's my one weight. But the thing is the reason why he's my one weight is just how much better Armin has gone since they last fought. They both have gotten better, as you mentioned, but Armin's just made, I feel like, bigger leaps, and in just the way he's been finishing and dominating people, and as of more recently, like he's got the KO, the TKO, and he's even got that the split decision against Charles Oliveira. I think just showed a lot too. So and it could have get argued gone either way, but I definitely had Armin winning that one. And the thing the reason though Islam is my one weight for that reason, just how dangerous Armin is. But I am siding with Islam still, just because like we've seen how Armin is against like other just people that can match his wrestling. Like when there was Matu Skarma beat him unanimously. So and this could go that way too, where Islam just completely beats Armin unanimously. But Armin's just looked again phenomenal in the last 4 fights. But Islam could always just remind everyone, like, look, this is why I'm like I deserve to be number one. Like this is why I'm up there. Islam's looked just phenomenal against Dustin Poirier, Volkanovski twice, Oliveira, Bobby Green, you name it. Like, and both guys, like Islam's not been actually, I feel like, challenged enough yet. But based off the dudes that he's fought, like in terms of like his resume, like they're high level dudes, but he went from fighting Dan Hooker and Bobby Green to Oliveira, Volk twice, and Dustin Poirier. This version of Armin is going to be probably one of the toughest matchups Islam has yet to face, even though it's a rematch. And with Armin, I just think this is his time. He's in his prime, and he just cannot let Islam shut down his wrestling, because they're going to be chain wrestling a lot like they did in their first fight. But fighters like Matu Skarma have found ways to neutralize that, and then it comes to the striking, and I think Armin has definitely gotten better with his striking as well. But I truly think Islam wins this, like in any way he wants. I think Islam could win this unanimously. I think Islam could finish TKO Armin, or even submit him. And if he does finish Armin, I don't think it'll happen right away. It's definitely going to happen like in the 4th or the 5th round, I think. But that being said, I'm going with Islam. It's Armin's definitely probably like one of the better, like just at least physically, and I think Armin's gonna be the most freakish one that Islam's fought yet, especially because Islam's like one of the dudes that is the closest to being able to chain wrestle with Islam and not feel as threatened when Islam is on top of him and going for squeezes and grabbing his neck. I just think in the first fight, Armin has just shown that he's more than comfortably enough navigating through that in the deep waters. So, and if he has that confidence and he's able to push back when if he gets rocked and he just knows like he has some confidence, like even a rocked Armin could cause some problems for Islam. So, that being said, again, I got Islam, but he is my one weight, and I truly think he's just the better fighter. But I think Armin could surprise us, is what I think as well. But that being said, Islam is my final pick for this one as my one weight.
All right, man. Sounds like we agree there, and it's just yeah, not much more to be said. Honestly, it's gonna stay in Islam's hands, and I think we're all just gonna have to continue to ooh and ah at the productivity, the star power, the grit, and just the raw talent and ability that the Dagestan area of the world continues to produce. We're going to see it back to back on Saturday night between Nurmagomedov and Makhachev. I mean, it's insane. It's a dream for anyone in that region of the world. Honestly, I think they're going to see some things that are going to inspire a new generation of kids out there, and we're never going to see the end of that region of the world dominating mixed martial arts. All props to them, and I don't think it's going to stop here with Islam. He comes in and submits Oliveira, and what does Tsarukyan do? Almost loses to Oliveira. So, MMA math definitely does not lead to good outcomes in most cases, but with guys like Oliveira, Tsarukyan, Makhachev, top end guys, most reliable guys, you can always expect high end performances out of them. I just think that's really telling. Makhachev finishes him. Tsarukyan split decision. Just think about that when you're making your bets and picks for this Saturday. Thanks everybody for listening. We have gone through all of our picks. As a quick recap, our MMA Lion Lock of the week is going to be Jiri Prochazka with 9 total confidence points. It's a great pick to make at minus 108. Fighting Jamal Hill, and I think we both think he can get the job done. And dog of the week, technically also Jiri Prochazka, as he is technically the dog in his fight. But also, I'm looking at taking the dog in Benny Dariush as well. So pick your poison there. Let us know down in the comments below who you agree or disagree with. And we'll, of course, as always, be back for the next UFC card. Just keep in mind, we do have 1 week off. This pay-per-view is exciting. It's amazing. But on January 25th, there will not be a UFC card. The UFC will be returning after this pay-per-view on February 1st with Izzy fighting Nasruddin Imavov in a fight over in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, I believe. It's going to be very interesting. That'll be some daytime fights. So just keep that in mind. Next week from today, we will not be live. It'll be the 27th, in which our next show thrives on, and we'll recount is the word I'm looking for. Recount what happens this Saturday, and continue to making winning picks and bets. Have a good week, everybody.